All right, everybody. Well, welcome to 2021, where we're trying to kick off the new year with something a little new, something a little different, something we've been wanting to do. And sorry, DBS podcast, but wasn't really picking up steam, so we're jumping over to something new and exciting that we're all ready to dive into. So we've got our first inaugural Black Coffee and Anime podcast, where we are just going to pick a series and just review it, basically story arc by story arc. No set number of episodes or nothing like that, but it's just going to be like a book club type thing for anime lovers. So if you want to, we'll announce at the end of each episode the arc that we're covering next and what episodes that'll be. So if you want to watch up those episodes and listen to us every other week and add your comments to the comment section and thoughts to the community, would love to have people participate. But yeah, so this first episode we are doing, if you can't tell, MHA, which is, it's my favorite anime. I don't know, guys, where it stands in your overall like tier list, but it's my favorite. But we're jumping into the first 4 episodes of that, the origin story. So everyone, like, where's this anime stand overall for you guys?
I've seen 3 anime, so it's in my top 3.
Why is he even here? I don't even understand. Can we vote him
I've seen
off the island?
JoJo, Dragon Ball, and MHA.
So basically what Bergie is here as like his he falls into the category of somebody who's coming along and saying like, I watched MHA and I really liked it, so I started exploring anime and now I'm interested in it so I can learn more. And the rest of us are here as seasoned anime veterans who obsessively watch different ones, and this is just an outlet for one of our favorite series. So MHA is definitely for me in the top 3, but I have seen way over 3 anime, so it's hard to gauge it for me personally, like over or under Dragon Ball, but I think that's because I love My Hero. I love the story arc, the character base. There's so much good stuff. The only difference is it doesn't have the nostalgia that Dragon Ball does for me. Like Dragon Ball is something that has been such a big part of my life that I think it kind of gets a tick up based solely on nostalgia. So it's hard to rank it over Dragon Ball, but it's definitely up there with that. And then I have really enjoyed. I watched it sparingly and then have recently watched a ton of it because of Robert specifically and his undying devotion to the great anime that is Naruto, and have absolutely fallen in love with Naruto. I'm a latecomer to the Naruto bandwagon, but 100% am on it hard because I love it.
There's always room.
Better believe
it.
Robert, do I need to ask? Does this make top 3 for you? Is it? I know it's not number 1.
Unfortunately, it doesn't make top 3 for me, and I think there's a lot of different things. I do think it's a great anime. Highly recommend to everybody. Love watching it with my boys. But if you had
not
to ask
us,
me,
his sons.
Yeah, I have a lot of kids. But I think for me personally, I've been watching anime since my parents thought I was Japanese in a prior lifetime. Like that's how dedicated I was to anime as a child. They're like, anime is not Chinese, right? And I was like, don't care. But I would say Naruto, just love it. Growing up and basically my formative years. When it ended, I actually cried. That's true. I'm not ashamed to admit it. But then something that maybe a lot of people don't know, the original Robotech or Macross. I used to wake up every day at 5:50 a.m. to watch it on the Sci-Fi Channel from 6 to 7. 2 episodes every morning religiously in middle school. So that's near and dear to my heart. Does MHA break into the top 3? I'd have to go with Blake on just Dragon Ball and growing up with Dragon Ball. And I do erase GT from that because GT is really wonky, but I do think that the original Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z are fantastic. Grew up on that, nostalgic, and I think they did a great job with Dragon Ball Super. So I would say just that franchise itself is probably 3. MHA is probably top 5, I do love the characters. The manga is fantastic for anybody who likes to read manga. And another one that I do love that actually got me into boxing. So Triple G, Hajime no Ippo, highly recommend for anybody there. But so much good anime, so much good manga out there. But MHA ranks up there with high quality binge watching greatness. And so
I think the reason that it does make it to my number one is just because yes, there's like the nostalgia of Dragon Ball, because Dragon Ball in its entirety, Dragon Ball Super, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, excluding GT. Even GT though, because like that came out and like the hype of it initially got me through. So nostalgia still exists for GT, even though I cannot watch it. I will not rewatch that ever in my life. I'm fine with it. So like that is number 2, and it's an extremely close number 2. But the only reason that I go My Hero over Dragon Ball, even with the nostalgia, is just because of how like emotionally tied to the characters I am. Like Dragon Ball, through all its nostalgia, through all the screaming I did in my woods trying to go Super Saiyan when I was 9, like through all of that, I still like don't have like the emotional attachment to characters that I do like MHA, and that's something that I really value. So like if you love getting into like really invested in really good character development, like this is, I think, an anime that is arguably one of the best that's done that. So
yeah, I think what makes this anime so good is that the way that they develop a lot. And obviously we're going to talk about the first 4 episodes specifically, but the thing that has impressed me the most watching the entirety of MHA, including the movies, is the fact that they do a really good job of developing all of the characters, as opposed to a lot of anime. When you watch it, they have like one specific main character, maybe 2 or 3, sometimes 4 kind of like supporting characters, and then a lot of characters that you kind of they come in and out of the show for small arcs, a few episodes here and there. And MHA is unique because like you meet characters in the first episode that you learn a lot about, and you get so much backstory on all of the students of class 1A. And that's what's probably the most impressive thing to me, is the development of characters is really, really deep in MHA.
Not only heroes, but also the villains, which I think MHA is perhaps one of the best animes in talking about villains. I think Naruto tried to do it a little bit, and I'd be remiss to say, obviously, Cowboy Bebop's in my top 5 too, so you can bump probably Hajime no Ippo off there, but because that's fantastic. But the way that they develop the villains in MHA is, I can't think of a better anime that actually talks about them than MHA. Like Naruto kind of got into it when they talk about pain and different things like that, but MHA and the way they talk about all the characters and how they all come together is bar none. It's one of the things I find most enjoyable as it continues.
Yeah, and then so I think my top 5 would be MHA, the Dragon Ball series. I love Naruto, especially after you made me go through and like finish watching it, Robert. But I think I can't have like 3 like mainstream like as my top. I think Cowboy Bebop actually beats out Naruto for me. And
I'm okay with that. Cowboy Bebop is
Cowboy
great.
Bebop is, I think, before I realized that like Dragon Ball Z, or back in the high school, that it was actually anime, or that like that's anime, I thought that like my first foray into anime was Cowboy Bebop, because I mean Dragon Ball Z was so like, it was Cartoon Network. It was just when I was a kid, it was a cartoon I liked to watch, So I think that Cowboy Bebop was my first, and Cowboy Bebop was Cartoon Network too, I suppose. But
Bergie,
yeah, then
get in here.
Say something.
Tell everybody about JoJo.
I like
terrible
JoJo.
it is.
It's great. JoJo's fun. I like it. It makes me laugh. The art style is great. I will say that. Part 6 might get animated this year, so that'd be fun. We could review that.
For anyone who hasn't seen JoJo and wants to know what the hype is, skip season 1 and 2.
Don't skip season 1 and 2. I legally need to say that. You can. I don't care. But people on Reddit will actually dox you if you don't.
It's terrible. It's a brutal grind.
Dude, part 3 onward is awesome. Like,
let's
get
kick it
into
off.
all that. Yeah, so let's jump right into episodes 1 through 4. So this episode arc is basically Midoriya getting his entry into the world of quirks, right? So very exciting to see how he developed, even in the short time of like the first 3 episodes, into someone who is far less whiny in my eyes. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that when comparing to like the other major 2 in my mind of like main character, initial character development, you've got Naruto early on, like the first season of Naruto. You've got Goku, kind of like early Dragon Ball Z. When he's a kid, it's like almost like a different character. And you've got like the ditziness of that. And then you've got Izuku Midoriya, who I would argue it's handled the best of any like character progression early story than either of those other 2. But what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference, so like Goku is kind of like in a different, I don't know, Goku kind of almost falls in a different category because him as a kid is so, it's like you said, it's almost like a different character, a different, completely different, separate kind of concept from him as an adult. And then as an adult, Goku is just I want to fight everybody guy. So he kind of like is in a different world. I think the 2 characters that fit the most parallel in terms of where they start to what they're trying to accomplish is definitely Midoriya and Naruto. And I think the difference is like where, like kind of how they're presented as a character. Whereas Deku has like this, he wants to be something, but his motivation comes from a place of like hope. He wants to give people hope. That's kind of his dream, is to give people the hope that All Might gives people. Whereas Naruto is this kid who is just legitimately like hated, and everybody just despises his existence because of what he is. So his whole thing comes from a place of like, I want to prove everybody wrong. I'm going to show everybody I'm going to be Hokage, and they're going to have to listen to me, and I'm going to be in charge. Whereas like Deku like wants to show people that there's more. Like sometimes I think he looks at heroes as something to be aspired to because he wants to give people hope, because they give him hope. So he wants to give other people what heroes give him. Whereas like Naruto kind of has this almost vengeful, but in a way like he just wants to prove to people that he has worth and value, which is where the characters kind of align in their arcs, is that they both have this desire to prove that there's something great. And I think the difference is like Naruto isn't necessarily whiny, where he's more like abrasive and in your face and just wants to kind of like shove it down everyone's throat. And Deku is just always kind of timid and like sad, not even sad, but like scared. And he screams a lot in like a bad way. But the way that they handle the character develop it into what he hopes to be is I think is a really good, they do a really good job of that. Like making that, to Dane, you talked about it earlier, we were kind of talking about it, is he's not like, he goes from screaming from fear to like screaming from like I'm ready, like embracing like newfound power.
I was gonna say, don't steal my point, or I'm not gonna message you guys my points anymore. Is that I love watching it the 3rd time now, these first 3 episodes. I realized that his screaming, like the like scared or whatever, like can't believe it, the really annoying like screaming that kind of grates against you when you're first watching this. And I don't blame anyone who's saying that's not for me. I don't enjoy it. It found a place in the development of Izuku for me when I realized that in episode 3, where Midoriya is standing on the trash heap after he cleans the beach and he screams, it's the first scream that's like a scream of like success and like victory. And it's almost like it's more of a roar. And that's also the last time you really see him like do the really prolonged whiny scream. And it's almost like that, like it was such like a clear-cut progression point for me that I was like, all right, I can accept the fact that like prior to him doing all of this hard work and growing as a young hero, that he was lost, especially not having a quirk and being told that he was not going to be a hero, and like lots of like personal things there, right? But yeah, that it found its place for me, and I no longer dread having to watch the first like 5 or 6 episodes.
That reminds me, the first time you told us to watch MHA, and I watched that first episode, and I was like, dude, this dude just this is brutal. There's like so much whining of crying and whining and crying.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, to your point, they do a good job building him up, and I grow to like him more and more. Not as much as my favorite character Bakugo, but the important thing about his origin to me is that he starts off without superpowers. Because if you think about even Naruto, he's got power. He can still do ninjutsu and jujutsu and taijutsu. Like, yeah, he's not the best, and he hasn't really unlocked his innate ability to just crush everybody with the nine tails, but it's there. So when I think about Deku, I think more along the lines of like Rock Lee, of like that's his origin, right? Like he's cleaning the beach, he's getting physically strong, he doesn't actually have any powers, but he's willing to put in the work. And again, it reminds me of kind of like Hajime no Ippo. Ippo is a normal nerdy kid who is challenged by a world championship boxer. Like, if he doesn't want to get picked on anymore, like, he can come to the boxing gym, right? And like, so it's about not having any talent and building himself up that way, and then kind of going into the world, building himself up before he gets his powers, which I think is a cool way to build up a character, because they didn't expect this to happen to them, and so they're still in awe every time that he uses his powers, or that he realizes he has powers, which I think you'll see, because as we talk more in Bakugo, he's born with the powers, right? He's like the Sasuke. He's got everything kind of given to him on a platter, and it's a very different dynamic.
Yeah, no, 100%. Bergie, what did you think starting to show out?
The music design is great. Like, I love music stuff, and just hearing the guitar go has always been so much fun when it starts up. Like, that was one of my favorite things about Dragon Ball, was just the guitar just happens. And like JoJo, it was always the similar song. Like, the character had its theme, and then the one part where it's gonna happen. Like, you've seen it online. JoJo has memes. It's funny. But the music that plays has always been just really good in the series that I've heard. And like, you can just tell that the atmosphere is always built up. When you want to feel a certain way, the music makes you feel that way. And I think that without the music, the show is a lot less good. Like, it's still very good, but I think it like de-elevates the whole, this situation's super important, take note. So you can kind of get that from the music. Like you said, on the beach, you're hearing like the sort of like Rocky like music of him training over and over again. And like, finally that roar, there's like the one climax of the song.
Yeah,
super cool. I like it a lot.
Yeah, no, the music definitely ties in really, really well. Blake,
I think so. To Bergie's point, I think the one thing that I picked up watching it, I think this is so I watched the episodes. So like, do the refresher. I watched them last night, which I think is the 4th time through the series, and maybe 5th, I don't know. But one of the things I noticed that I picked up that I thought was really cool was a foreshadowing cue in the music, where the scene where he asks his mom if he can be a hero after he's told he doesn't have a quirk, and he goes, do you think I can I can be a hero? Do you think I can still be a hero? And she just says she's sorry, and he says like, and there's that overlay of his voice saying like, that's not what I needed to hear. In the background, you hear a very like somber version of the music that plays when he, as Deku, becomes a hero or starts to use his powers. The music that plays that is like epic when he's doing it and more upbeat. They do a somber, more like orchestral take of that underneath, and that's like a really cool foreshadowing of this idea. Like, do you think I can be a hero? Do you think I can still do this? And she just kind of cries and says no, and it's like the music is telling you, just wait, like just hold on, like just give it a minute. This moment's going to come back. And it makes a really epic moment like later in the show when they call back to that moment as he's being heroic for the first time. And it's just cool. Like the overlay of that with All Might, and then all of those moments it's a really interesting way that they use the music in the show. And to me, that's something that I really enjoy, when the music is part of the storytelling, and that's something they do really well with My Hero for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, we'll get to voice actors in the future. I can't not hear All Might as Vegeta, and I can't not hear Endeavor as Dio.
Oh,
Like, that's my one issue with the show, is just the voice actors. They're just too good at what they do.
Easy to solve. Watch
Easy
the
to solve.
original Japanese. Read the subtitles. There you go. Done. Fixed.
But I like seeing Endeavor as Dio. I think it's fun.
I think the voice actor familiarity from like show to show is really cool. And it is funny how some of the voice actors, when they do other stuff, like you hear All Might and Vegeta a little bit, but like they're so starkly different characters, it's easier to separate them than some of the other voice actors. Or the voice itself like he's way more epic and clear, and like his pronunciation is very precise when he's All Might, versus like when he's Vegeta, it's a little more gruff and angry all the time. So it's those two voices are actually pretty easy to separate a lot of times, because the characters are so uniquely different and their like speech patterns are very unique.
Yeah,
That's
I've got like
Endeavor
3 different Vegeta voice actors in my head, because I count Dragon Ball Z Abridged as like another voice actor that I think of actively in my brain when I hear Vegeta's voice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that adds a little bit to like the separating of voice actor ruining my immersion as well, because I think at this point, between the 20 plus different animes I've watched complete, like it which is probably not a big number, honestly. Robert can attest to that. He's like, dude, what is that trash? But
it's okay.
20, those are rookie numbers.
Everyone's going to start somewhere. And you got to keep in mind, I've been watching anime for, 30 plus years. So it's just,
it's true.
I mean,
you've been watching anime for longer than I've been alive.
Same here.
Double what Bergie's been alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, that's yeah, I loved the anime. It was always my cartoons.
I think that the first 3 episodes whining was my only drawback when I first watched the show, and I was like, don't know if this is ever going to be better than how I view Dragon Ball Z, or even because I finished MHA before you got me to start Naruto, so at the time Naruto wasn't truly on my radar. But like Cowboy Bebop, I was like, I don't think it's ever going to be like better than my nostalgia involved with that either. And then the story just took off, and the character explanation and this character side stories, and like just like how in depth they go, and they make you care about Kirishima and make you care about Uraraka. Like there's so many things that happen down the road that just really make you, I getting into future stuff. And we said we wouldn't do that. So I'm pulling it back. First 4 episodes.
And everybody who knows Dane, he's real upset with himself right now.
I made rules and I broke them. There are no rules. No, I really appreciate the work that they put into the characters of this show. That being said, everybody, I will ask this every arc. Who is your favorite character introduced in this arc? And we will start with Blakey Fresh.
All right, so I'm going to actually omit. So my favorite character will come up later in the show. So like early on, I was just like watching the show, and I think the character that I actually thought was a combination of funny and interesting was actually Uraraka, because I love the, like, she saves him, and then he has that like he's a teenage boy moment where he freaks out. He goes, I talked to a girl, and he like almost pukes.
I love that they translate like the subtitle like Japanese where it says didn't actually talk.
I like the part with the old lady as well.
It's so good. And then that part, and then also the part where like it's great because she's running through, and it's cool to see how like they immediately show you how powerful her quirk really can be, with all of the running through, touching, and then just touching her fingers together, dropping everything. But then I love the end of it, right? The last time you kind of see her, the thing she does where she actually reaches out and like slaps him to touch him to keep him from hitting the ground. Mm-hmm. And then she's like hanging on so tight, and then she like releases, and then she does the puke glitter thing, which is just like that's the best thing, is that she, like, when she overextends herself, other people just pass out from exhaustion, or they're like physically destroyed, like their bodies are beat. And like Uraraka, when she overextends herself, she like touches her fingers and she's like, and it's just rainbows and glitter like
Yeah.
floating up in the sky. It's just the best. So like she's my favorite character from the first 4 episodes that you kind of get introduced to. That isn't
Yeah.
All Might or Deku.
Right,
For sure.
right. I mean, aside from if you say Deku, you're copping out. No, that's fine. You can say Deku. He's a good character. Plot twist. Yeah, and I love so like Uraraka's power. Like I don't know if it's ever explained in the show, but like there's no notes, but she just gets nauseous because of like the anti-gravity aspect of her power.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's cool how they always tie in humor at proper times, I think is key.
Yeah.
Like they allow humor when there's room for it to keep the show light and like, hey, Shonen Jump, like, but it's not ruining like some of the more emotional parts or intense parts too.
Yeah.
Robert, what about you?
So I'm gonna go flat out. Bakugo is my favorite character in the show. I don't think he has a great first 4 episodes per se. He feels very Sasuke-esque, and I absolutely despise Sasuke. I think he's the lamest character in ever. He's just
Literally
such
the
a clown.
worst.
Literally the worst. He's slightly better in Boruto, slightly. But I don't think Bakugo has a great first 4 episodes, but I'm gonna go a different direction, but also towards hate. And
I like
hate is I really hate Lita during the when they're about to go to the test, and just that kid who gets straight A's and is like all uptight. Like
Yeah.
Ida.
Yeah, it just makes me go back in time being like, what is wrong with you, man? Like, why are you the way that you are? Like, and it just had very raw emotions of being like, there are people like that in school and they still make me want to vomit, and I haven't been in school for like 25 years. But it's still that visceral, oh my god, I freaking hate you. And so that's what I'm gonna go with. Being introduced, I'm just like, dude, you're a clown, man. You're a clown. Get out of here. Ain't nobody need that. Ain't got no time for that.
Ida's character is actually like one of the characters that has the most interesting arc, I think. Like I think his character arc on the side of things is really, really interesting when you see him go from like that first initial time where they show him where he's like the perfect straight A student, and then he kind of is humorous throughout the thing, and then when you get to the arc with all of the stuff, when you find about his brother and family and stuff, it's really, really interesting, I think.
You're gonna have to cut that out, Dane, because he's breaking the rules.
I was foreshadowing. All good shows foreshadow.
We can foreshadow. All good casts, all good podcasts foreshadow. Bergie, so I'm gonna just listen to us talk here. You raise a good point that like my favorite character, technically already introduced, but so when the time comes, I'm not gonna be able to say him because he's already been introduced. So I think that it's just your favorite character for this arc, not necessarily who was introduced in this arc, but for this arc, who is your favorite character or standout character that might have had a moment that you really loved or something. So going forward, that's how I'll handle it. But Bergie, who's your favorite character this arc?
I was gonna say Ida, but Robert's doing me a favor tomorrow, so I can't say that because I think Ida's fun in the future. Like it's not more like I like him in this arc. I think I come from JoJo. JoJo is the most just what the heck is happening TV show, and Ida embodies all of that, and I think it's hilarious. In the future, he gets good.
Like Ida.
This arc probably All Might's fun. All Might's just really funny. Just like you weigh 600 pounds. No, I lost weight. What?
Only 560
the internet didn't say
in this
that.
form. Yeah.
I'm like,
I love
the
that
voice
you
acting
can go from like 80 pounds in skinny form to 600 pounds in like beefy form.
And
like, it doesn't even make sense.
it just does not.
He explains it by talking about guys who suck in at the pool or at the beach.
Yeah.
You know,
Right, yeah.
that's basically what I
you
do
look like you
to
don't eat
gain
food,
400 pounds.
That's not sucking in, that's releasing.
Yeah. No, lots of good moments. I think that for me, I actually really like Bakugo in this arc. I know people are not gonna like that because he's just angst in this arc, but I think that I'm coloring that a little bit with knowing where it ends or knowing how it moves forward. So foreshadowing again, we're gonna be a really successful podcast. But the fact that he is so dislikable in this. Like he's such a bully. I think this anime, more than a lot of other animes, makes a lot of sense to me. I feel like in a lot of animes, you have to go through like an acceptance where you're going to have to suspend your belief at some point to let the anime just make its own sort of sense, right? Like a lot of animes, especially when you get outside of like the major like Shonen Jump, Cartoon Network adaptations, like they do that where if you're watching Soul Eater or something, like something will happen and you're like, that's not how like people would react or do stuff, but okay, for the sake of this cool story, we'll let it go. But like I think that his character makes sense coming from a middle school, coming from how he grew up, when you get glimpses into like him and Deku as kids. Like I like Bakugo in this arc.
And I think Bakugo has that feel of like the star athlete in a world of quirks, right? Like you're not looking at superstar athletes, you're looking at the most gifted quirk users as the kids who are going to go on and make a name for themselves and do something great. They're going to be the next hero. They are going to have a shot at being number one. And that's kind of what Bakugo is he has a really powerful quirk. He actually knows how to use it, which a lot of these kids in that middle school age seem to be they have goofy quirks, or you'll see them in the room where they don't seem to have a quirk that seems very useful. And Bakugo's quirk actually legitimately seems like, hey, that's a quirk that could be the quirk of a number one hero, and he knows how to use it. And he actually looks like he's trained with his quirk, because you see things like the fact that he can put his hand on a shoulder and make it warm. He can light a note for a little bit, but not blow it completely up.
Blast.
But then yeah, he knows how to use his blast from a small thing all the way up to where he's like almost blowing up the goo guy. And it's interesting that like at his age, he actually has this wide range of quirk using versus a lot of these kids that seem to be not as gifted.
And I think that his personality, that's one of the things that I think makes me like him in this, is because his character is like very tied in a bow to me in this arc. Like he is, he's like silver spooned. Like, yeah, he might have trained with this quirk, but like he has a good quirk and he has a natural talent to use that quirk very well, and that's caused him to have an air of superiority to him, to how he views others. And that is all 100% like some middle school ideology. So that is, I like Bakugo in this arc. Not like I would personally like him if I met him. I just like his character in this arc. That's
his character makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But anyways, what is your favorite moments in these first 4 episodes?
There's only one moment that ever needs talked about, and it's my favorite quote, maybe from like most of the show. And I want to jump in and make sure I get it out there first. So clench your butt cheeks, kid, and yell this from the depths of your heart. Like, that is one of the finest lines I've ever heard written in an anime ever. Clench your butt cheeks, kid. Like, it's just so good. It's so well written. Yeah. And it's just the fact I love that because it says a lot about All Might, and it gives you a really good glimpse into the fact that he is not just the symbol of peace and this big epic mountain who protects the world, but it kind of relates to that goofy guy that he seems to turn into when he deflates, where he's just kind of he seems awkward and clunky and odd, and you get this sense that he has a depth to his character that isn't just I need to be the symbol of peace. That's kind of feels like the yin and yang of him and somebody like we'll get into later when we talk about Endeavor, is like All Might is very relatable, and lines like "so clench your butt cheeks, kid" is very much a line that you're like, it fits his character, and I get it. Like, I like him more because he has kind of some humor about him, and it's a fun line that he says. I think that's like my favorite moment
in a show based on superpowers, quirks. But in a show that's based around that, it stops him from just being like a Superman proxy. Like it makes him like, it gives him that depth of character for sure. Bergie, let's hop over to you. I feel like you always get shafted with last place. What was your favorite moment from this arc?
Probably the scene, like, so again, I'm gonna relate to JoJo. JoJo has these things where it's like in Japanese, it's the letter, and it's either like menacing or words like this. When Deku's just like muttering, and it just clogs the screen, it's like running into people because he's muttering so much. Like things like that just make me feel like this is funny, this is well written. Like you could tell this was adapted from a book, that the art was like full of that word just on the page, and they adapted it super well. Like that kind of style. It does it also with other words in the series, and like I think those are some of my favorite parts.
Robert, what is your favorite part of the first arc?
So my favorite part of the first arc is, it's at the end of, I want to say episode 3. Is it episode 3 or episode 4? Where Deku just casually kind of says, and oh, by the way, this is the story of how I became the world's greatest superhero. Like 4 episodes in, he can't control his power. He doesn't even have a power. Like, he spent his whole life basically not being able to be a superhero, and just casually drops this line of, and this is actually this is my story of how I became the world's greatest superhero. And I just love, you might even miss it because it's so casual, but it's so it had such a great impact to me. And I think part of it is some of the Naruto influence and how I live my life, but almost like, like I'm gonna be the Hokage, I'm gonna be the world's greatest superhero. I don't know. It really had an impact, and when I was rewatching it, I mean, I typed it into chat, just being like, "This is the most boss line ever." In fact, I'm going to use it for this podcast. This is the origin of us becoming the world's greatest black coffee drinker, watching anime podcasts, and it's boss. It stirs up emotion. It's really based off of nothing that you've seen so far, but he just throws it out there and you believe it, and I love it. Hits me right in the feels.
Yeah.
Right now.
You love your feels. I love my anime feels, for sure.
I think what I like about Deku, and I think the reason that I like him in the way that I like Naruto, is like they have a different character arc in the reasoning by they doing things. But I think what I love about them is the underdogness of how they're kind of incapable of doing the things that everybody else does naturally, but they refuse to let that stop them from doing the thing that they believe in. And there's something about the fact that is, as much as there's the joke, right, in Naruto, like if anybody watches Naruto, you know that the joke is always Kakashi saying, "Okay, guys, we have to formulate a plan." And then that's the moment Naruto goes, "Shadow Clone Jutsu," and just runs headlong in front of everybody. But what's great about that is like there's that moment where All Might says, like, every great hero that I know, there was a moment where in that moment their body reacts before their mind can stop them. And it's like, that's Naruto. Like before he can think about what's even happening, he's just running headlong at the problem, and he's like, I'll figure it out when I get to the problem. I'm sure along the way I'll come up with a solution. And it's like, that's Deku in a nutshell, right? Is throughout the show, and especially in these first episodes, you see this sense of his body reacts because in his heart he's a hero, and his body has to figure out now just how to be the hero that his mind believes he can be, or that his mind believes he has to be.
Yeah. So that's good. That's perfect. That actually leads kind of into one of my favorite moments, or my favorite moment of this arc, is I love when you said two things now, and I don't know which one to respond to first. I think that I'll start with your point, and then I'll go into my favorite part of the first arc. I think that I love Zuko as far as like protagonists go the most of like the other anime's protagonists, just because like he's got a level of intelligence to him too, where he is striving and he's trying to be the best, but it's not like a blind, it's not like I'm just gonna throw myself at this and it'll work out because I have cool hair and I am obviously the anime protagonist. Like it'll work. Like he has a plan, right? And that moment where he is on the rooftop after he clings to All Might and they're standing there and he does like his like, the annoying scream that we all hate, and when All Might deflates and he asks him if he could be a hero without a quirk, and All Might says not without a quirk. Like there's too many things that quirks allow you to do, essentially, right? Like you can't stop all of these super powered threats without a quirk.
Yeah.
And I liked that. I was like, dude, yes, that is what like a realistic, like grounded in truth and reality, like story should say at this point, because it's not, you can be whatever you want to be. The only reason that I think that breaking Midoriya's heart in that moment was acceptable is because I think that when All Might made the shift mentally to be like, oh, this kid's like super deserving, when he rushes in to save Bakugo and he decides that I'm going to pass on this quirk, he realizes that he's opening that door for Midoriya to actually excel with a power, and I think that is all bolstered by the fact that like he keeps these notebooks that like he shows that he like is like learning and studying these other heroes, and he's not just like your anime protagonist that's having things working out weirdly and you're suspending disbelief to make it make sense, and because that's what the protagonist does. And that moment was like the moment watching the show initially where I was like, they are gonna hopefully keep this grounded in reality and like make logical story point decisions, and they definitely do, which make me very happy.
I mean, but that moment's good because I think the fact that up to that moment too, you have to keep in mind that Deku hadn't done anything in All Might's eyes that was deserving or that proved to him that even without a quirk he could be something.
Right.
Because up to that point, all he knew about him was that he almost got killed and then he freaked out and just grabbed onto his leg because he was a psychopath apparently who just wanted to see All Might. But then later on, when All Might acknowledges that, he's got the heart of a hero, he just needs the quirk of a hero, and he can provide that. He can give him, it's that classic thing, right? Like you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have the heart, it doesn't matter. But if you've got the heart, you can overcome it given the right set of circumstances. And if you try hard enough, and in this case, it's like All Might can provide the quirk as long as Deku can provide the heart. And that's like Deku has the heart of a hero. He has the desire of a hero and the willingness of a hero. He just didn't have the quirk. All Might can provide that for him. The first 4 episodes do a lot for the show. It's interesting in this show, I think, because I think what's interesting is like in the first 4 episodes of the show, you're in. Like once you hit the 4th episode, you're kind of beyond the things that kind of bother you about some of these shows in their first arcs. And this show, it's like 4 episodes versus some shows like just skip the first season and go on and you'll be fine. Like that's what's impressive about My Hero is it happens
Or
fast.
2 seasons.
So overall synopsis of the first arc, first four episodes here.
Let me go. Deku's a chump, got no powers, works really hard, can't control his body, just wants to go save people even though he's got no powers and no skills and is weak. And then All Might, world's greatest superhero, think that's good enough to become the world's greatest superhero and agrees to train him and pass on his quirk.
Boom. I feel like we should just end episodes with Robert's synopsis of the arc.
You missed the entire 4th episode.
The only reason I put the 4th episode tied into these was like the first 3 just seemed that seemed too short, knowing that next episode we're going to cover like 11 episodes. Next podcast episode we're going to cover 11 MHA episodes. So I just wanted to like balance it a little bit and just give people, because there's a really cool moment in episode 4, right, where Izuku uses his power truly for the first time, and it's really cool to watch him like own that. And first instinct is still just to like throw his whole body at a problem that he sees in front of him. And
I love it.
He definitely,
I think it's important for the audience to know that he would have done that even if he had no powers, because up to that point he honestly didn't even know if he had powers, because All Might told him that it takes a couple hours to kick in, boy, like you'll figure it out. Right? That's the whole clench your butt cheeks and scream. Like he's like, the test is right now. You just ingested my DNA or ate his hair, whatever you want to call it. He's literally thinking, he's like, do I even have powers? I don't know what to do. I'm out here. There's robots. Everyone's kicking ass. I literally can't do anything. shoot, I can't say her name.
Uraraka.
Is in trouble.
Uraraka.
Yeah, Uraraka, Gravity Girl, is in trouble, and he's like, I gotta do something. It just so happens that all of his powers kicked in, and he went absolutely ape bananas. But nonetheless, it's the fact that he would have done it even if he had no powers. I'm not quite sure what it would have happened.
I like to think that he was turning around to run back for her, and it just so happened that when he tried to use his powers, it launched him into the air instead of just like running backwards. Like I kind of like to do that little like moment where my brain flips like,
Yeah.
what if this doesn't go exactly how like they said the script went? Like what would the character do? And so like to your point exactly, I just always pictured Deku still turning around to run. It's just that he got his powers kicked in and he was a hero either way. So
Yep.
But yeah, so that's why I lumped in.
It is in my synopsis. Bergie.
Boom. Synopsisized. So that's why we included episode 4, even though it's not truly like the training, the first 3 episode arc. Just because I wasn't sure how this first
Ida be a total ass.
Yeah. I wasn't sure how the first Black Coffee and Anime podcast was going to go. So I wanted to give us something juicy to dig into if we had to. But so if you plan on following us and kind of doing this little anime club with us, we would love to see your comments in the first episode. We take feedback. If you follow us from any of our other content, a lot of it is like game oriented. And majority of actually all of it, right? All of it's game oriented. This is our first like foray into something that is just a love of ours that is not like a card game. We take feedback very well, so we would love to see in the comments what you guys like, didn't like, some changes. If there's like questions you'd like to see us hit like every time, like if you can think of something else that you want me just to touch on for each arc, I'd love to hear it. And hope that you'll listen next time when we cover episodes 5 through 13, which will take us through the first season. We'll cover through the USJ if you haven't watched already. If you're going to rewatch it and join us for your thoughts, there's some pretty cool stuff that happens that we're excited to hit on. And I would like to put a disclaimer that we are not, other than Robert, we're not like anime mega super duper fans. Like our life revolves around it. We use proper Japanese pronunciation, all that stuff. Like you can make the comments if it's going to help you sleep at night. We're not going to listen to them. We're just talking about a show that we really love and we're going to enjoy it. And there's going to be an MHA card game coming out, and it's going to be coming out in the next couple months here. So that is something that me and Robert, for sure, possibly Blake, are going to like focus on as that transition happens, because we know the system, Universe's system, and the system's really nice, and it is a very functional game that we're going to get into because they're going to make it a standalone MHA, and that's going to be like our foray into that. So it seemed like a good time to get into the MHA Black Coffee and Anime. Thanks for joining us for our first episode. Great. Really appreciate everybody's support. If you are into any card games or anything like that, make sure you check out our other content. Leave your thoughts and feedback in the comments. Hope you could join us every other week when we do our Black Coffee and Anime podcast, where we'll be reviewing going forward, and just in time for the next season of MHA coming out this year and the game coming out that we're all hyped on. So looking forward to seeing you guys. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get the notification when our new podcasts go out, and we will look forward to talking to y'all next time. Peace.
Plus Ultra.
Detroit Smash.